All right, guys, we are live. This is the UFC Kansas City recap show on the Sherdog YouTube page. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of the great website, Sherdog.com. He, of course, is Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit fried because this is my first week of the next couple months of writing the text recaps for the site, plus doing radio. So I've been working harder than usual, but that's a-okay.
All I heard was wah 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 wah. Ben's got to do work. Oh no.
I hate it when my work feels like work, you know.
Shout out to everyone in the chat chatting up. We'll get to as many comments, questions, all that we can. We're recapping 14 fights, so it's a little later than we've been getting. Ben, I got to tell you a quick story before we get into this.
Hit me.
So on this preview show, we had a debate on best Wu-Tang members.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people jumped in, gave their take. So I was working a detail today, and it was like a marijuana dispensary party. It was potheads everywhere. I think I saw Nate Diaz,
Yeah.
But the guest performer tonight was Ghostface Killer.
Oh, well, shit.
Yeah.
There you go.
I wasn't there, though. I only did the first half. I wasn't there for the second half because I'm rather hang out with you guys than my favorite Wu-Tang member. I just thought that was so ironic. I had no idea until I got there.
It's pretty cool.
So, yeah. All right, let's get right into it. Max Holloway took on Arnold Allen. He said to Arnold Allen, if you were a gun, you wouldn't bust back. I don't know. I was trying to think of a Ghostface Killer line. That wasn't the best. I don't know. I told him to protect his neck. That's what I should have did. I should have went with the obvious. Max Holloway won a unanimous decision. I had it 4 rounds to 1. No, excuse me. I actually had 3 rounds to 2. I gave Allen the second round. I gave Allen the 5th round. How'd you score, Ben?
I gave Allen the 2nd and 5th as well.
Okay, so we had the same way.
Yes.
I'm gonna do something we usually get pretty technical in here, but normally we get a little technical, but we try to balance it. I want to go a little more technical than we normally do.
Okay.
And the reason why, there's 2 reasons. One, being the results of this fight, it's hard to match Max because he has 3 losses to the current champion, and the guy. I mean, the crowd wanted to win one, but I don't know if necessarily the guy the UFC might have wanted to win. Though I think Max Holloway is very, very marketable, but until Alex Volkanovski leaves that division, he isn't. So I kind of want to get into the good and the bad of the technical. Is that something we can do?
Yeah.
All right.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
And it's a technical one. We've seen a lot of people take on Max Holloway in purely striking battles, and they all lose. Like, at featherweight, you only beat Max Holloway with at least a threat of the takedown. But I saw Arnold Allen make Holloway more uncomfortable than Cater or Ortega or
he did better.
Rodriguez. Yeah. Like, Holloway, he won the rounds. He won either 3 or 4 rounds, depending on how you scored it. But he never got into that Max Holloway mode where he's coming forward, throwing long combinations. What did Allen do to stop him from being able to do those things?
I think he hits harder.
Okay.
Like, he hits really hard. And I think because of that, and I think he landed a big shot early in the fight, like first 2 minutes in or something like that. And I think because of that, Holloway had to be a little bit more cautious. I think he realized how hard he hits. But that's it, man. Other than that, I thought Max Holloway was pretty brilliant, and we can get into some of those things that just kind of stood out to me. The first thing that really stood out to me was the kicks. Like, the one thing when you break down Max Holloway's striking game, you don't really mention kicks. It's always boxing. It's one of the negative we talk about. That wasn't the case against Arnold Allen. He was throwing lots of kicks, like way more kicks than usual. I think some of it had to do with Allen sitting on his punches a little bit, so it kind of opened up those leg kicks. I also think being the southpaw from the orthodox obviously always lines up the right kick. I think he was trying to zap some of his power going to the midsection. I think that's where we saw a lot more body work, even though, I mean, Holloway obviously does go to the body a lot, but even more in this fight. That's like the first thing that jumped out to me. Give me something that jumped out to you in a good sense that Max Holloway was doing.
I mean, this isn't a good thing. It's always a backhanded compliment when you say this about a fighter, but he really is just unbelievably rugged and hard to hurt. Like, even people we've talked about that they stymied Holloway with power and took him out of his usual game. People like Poirier, people like, to a smaller extent, Allen tonight, people like Volkanovski. Like, we've never seen Holloway really, really badly hurt. And every time I forget that, because in the first round of this fight, I was surprised by Allen's hand speed and just kind of how fearlessly he like jumped into the pocket and was landing clean left hands. Because everybody lands on Holloway. Holloway's brilliance as a striker has never been about being untouchable. He's not Lyoto Machida. He's not Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
Like, everyone hits Holloway. He just hits them twice as much and they die. But this time I figured, okay, this is the time. Maybe this is where the chin catches up to Holloway. We talked about it on the preview. And then in the fifth round, where Allen was like, I got to go for broke. I know. And Faraz is like, yeah, you got to go for broke. You got to do the Dan Hooker thing. And he comes out and he just puts a furious pace on Holloway, hits him cleanly, head kicks him a couple times. Holloway, his ability to shrug things off is just absolutely unbelievable. And it runs counter to what we think about fighters who have as many miles on them as him, and to fighters who have such an obviously big weight cut. I mean, like I say, you told me to say something nice. I know it's the most backhanded of compliments, but it is superhuman. Max Holloway is one of the toughest dudes ever to do this thing.
Yeah, go back to, I mean, I don't know when it was, but I remember it was International Fight Week where Holloway had that scare where he was cutting weight. And
it's 2019 International Fight Week. Bisping's the one that pointed it out. Yeah,
he was doing that interview and everyone was saying like, oh, he's punch drunk or he's dehydrated, all this weird stuff. What a non-story that ended up being.
Well, it's because it all happened in such short order. There was the thing in 2018 where he tried to come in on short notice at lightweight to save the Conor Khabib card, and he couldn't even make lightweight on short notice because he walks around at like 189 pounds. And then there was that thing like less than a year later where Bisping is like, dude, are you all right? I'm trying to interview you. And you're like nodding off. You're like Chuck Liddell on that morning show in 2009. Like,
it was like half the people I met today at the weed factory.
And then all of a sudden, it's almost 4 years later. Holloway has never had a weight issue. He's never had a weird moment during a fight week, and he's still never been seriously like rocked by headshots in a fight.
It's absolutely incredible. Another thing that stood out to me was how comfortable Max got early. We've talked about. I love that DC called him a builder. And I'm like, man, can you at least give us credit for that? We've been marching that. You know, Holloway is the guy I think of when I think of a builder. He's like the stereotype. And when Allen landed early, I was like, oh shit, like Allen's coming to fight. And then about halfway through the first round, I was like, wow, Max is just really getting comfortable early. And I tweeted out about it saying like, well, this is not gonna, if Max Holloway is already getting your timing and feeling that comfortable early where he's starting to do like spinning, back kicks and all this stuff, that's when I was just like, oh man, like Max Holloway, this is going to be a bad night for Arnold Allen, which is ironic because the next round Arnold Allen had probably his best round.
Yeah, Allen had a second round, was a fantastic round for him. Obviously, like the fifth, just because he threw everything, out the window and came for him. But yeah, like I like that Allen and Faraz Sahabi clearly watched tons and tons of tape on Holloway, and now there's more tape on Holloway than there is on all but two people in the history of the UFC. And by golly, how much more fun is his 7 hours of tape to watch than RDA's?
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I kept thinking when they saying about how much time he has and how much significant strikes he lands, I just was thinking like, well, yeah, that's, I would say it's a compliment, but there's also like a little bit of an insult in there. Like, how many fights didn't he finish? And that's why we have so much time, But I don't remember the last time I watched a Max Holloway fight and I was like bored. Now, mind you, he's always in the main event. It's always extremely high stakes, so that takes away some of the boredom either. But
there have been other fighters. I mean, George St. Pierre fought
Oh yeah,
nobody but the best fighters in the whole world for like the last 8 fights
that's
of it,
true.
or 8 years of his career, and some of those
Yeah,
fights were not appointment viewing. Like Holloway, I tweeted. I mean, I was busy tonight, so I only sent like 3 tweets out all night. But one of them was, "Hey, remember that bad Max Holloway fight?" Yeah, me neither.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah. One, I don't know, a Conor McGregor fight a decade ago, maybe whatever,
and that's
whatever that
that's
was.
because Connor just wanted to wrestle. Max came to fight. Connor came to
Yeah,
wrestle.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Anderson Silva has had boring fights. John Jones has had some boring fights.
Well,
Uh,
Anderson Silva almost like until Chael came along, almost all of his title fights had been boring.
well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I mean, he battered Rich Franklin, knocked out, and choked out. Oh, knocked down and then choked out Dan Henderson. The comeback on Travis Luter, the smashing of Nate. I'm going to disagree with that. I think,
Okay, yeah. I mean,
I think the little section before might have been.
yeah, it's like that's
Little,
my problem. I'm thinking of like the Cote and Leche's fights, like right before Connor
yeah,
came along,
Damon Maya. Yeah,
where like they would just try to punctuate it by sending up to like just bust an overmatched 205er, like
yeah.
Forrest Griffin. Yeah.
Um, another thing. So you talked about all the tape study they could have on Max Holloway. I think one thing he was struggling with is just the variety, and this is the one thing I always talk about Max Holloway being a belt. That's number one. The number two thing is just the combination. Like I did a little. I'm sorry, I don't remember the guy's name, so I apologize. It's super late at night, so cut me some slack. When I was talking to the guy, shit, Caged In podcast. I apologize. He messaged me and he asked me to do a quick little prediction, like a 1 minute prediction, which asking me to do a 1 minute prediction is like, hey Keith, only talk for 1 minute. Yeah,
Secret. Before we record the previews, I asked Keith to do a 1 minute prediction. He's the reason we don't have like a 48-minute show. It's 3 hours because of him.
Yeah. So I tried to cut down as much as I possibly could to talk about it for a minute. And one thing I didn't want to leave out is just the variety. Like Max Holloway does never tax the same way. It's like him and Volkanovski, the same thing. They never tack like, oh, I'm gonna throw this combination, I'm gonna throw this combination again. No, it's like he'll go back to that combination. He threw it first round at fifth round when you forgot about it. So the variety and also the stance switching was he always flows. I mean, that's his thing. He flows kind of very similar to Israel Adesanya, where part of their defense is actually switching the stance. Mm-hmm. But he was switching his stances, and Arnold Allen was so focused on winning the foot battle, which is smart because he's trying to line up that left hand. He's trying to land a big shot, but he was spending so much time. All right, let me get back to the foot stance, and he's trying to outside step, trying to get the foot. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying by that, trying to get on the outside of so he can line up the left hand, especially when Holloway would have went to the southpaw stance. And while he's doing that, Max is hitting him. So that's another thing that really stood out to me about Max Holloway. It just how brilliant that was. Give me one more thing.
Oh, dude, you're the better, one to point those things out. Just
all right. I'll give you one more. I had one more left.
Well, actually, here, let Dev our like honorary third. This is a good point. Max's attacks when Allen crashed the pocket were great, and they formed an adjustment because Allen had pretty good success in the first round, just bouncing right in and swinging on Max. But after, I would say after the second round, Max really had it dialed in, and those avenues were closed to him anymore. Like Max came up with ways to stop his forward momentum and punish him for just charging in.
Yeah. I love Dev's tweet. Hey Keith, 1 minute, please. Keith's response. Hey, let me tell you a story. I should have did that. I should have sent him a story time with Keith first. And then this fight is great. It reminds me of the time I was hanging out at the weed dispensary. Let me tell you the story. Oh, that was good. I love that our listeners always attack me and make fun of me. Jeez. One thing that DC said that Holloway was winning the little exchanges in between the big attempts between Allen. So Allen would throw a big attempt, and then Holloway would win all the stuff in between.
Mm-hmm.
And then Allen would throw a big shot again. Holloway, a lot of times he's missing, and then Allen would win everything again. Felt like I don't know, like an obstacle course, or like if things coming around and you got to like get in there and like get some stuff, and like the wheels coming around with the hitching, you got to back out before it comes, and then you go back in there and get some more. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's how I kind of felt like.
Holloway's an unforgiving guy to fight. Well, obviously he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. But he's unforgiving because you mentioned the winning the little battles in between the big ones. How many top fighters have we on previews said his main problem is that he's not a round winner? Holloway does not have that problem. Like, if you don't hurt him really badly, Holloway wins the round almost by default because he's winning the individual seconds and moments and transitions between the big moments of exchange.
Yeah. And just so we don't necessarily say, like, I do think it's a bad thing to not be a round winner, but it's weird because some of the all-time greatest aren't that way. Now, of course, they win majority of the rounds, but it's not their goal. Their goal is the ultimate.
Right.
The first guy I think it was John Jones. Like this. Anderson Silva was the same way, where they're always thinking, let me do things in the first round that's going to affect the fifth round, not necessarily let me do things that's going to win the round.
Right.
So I want to talk about Arnold a little bit. I don't think it was a bad performance. I mean, you win 2 rounds or 1 or 2 rounds against Max Holloway. That's always a good performance. He
did better against Max Holloway than any featherweight not named Alexander Volkanovski has in almost a decade.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Calvin Kattar got absolutely trashed. Yeah, Rodriguez got trashed.
Ortega
got trashed.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't get trashed. He was swinging at air a lot, and I think these 2 points kind of go hand in hand. Is one, I think he was too left-hand happy, where and I'll tell you why I believe he's too left-hand. He was really struggling with the distance of Max Holloway and connecting clean. And that was because he was really struggling with getting past the front hand of Max Holloway. Max would switch stance and grab his hand. He'd be grabbing at the right hand a lot. So he kind of was forcing, like, hey, you only can throw this big left hand a lot. Now, of course, it was not the whole fight, 25 minutes, one whole day, but just big portions. And I thought Allen really struggled. And one thing I think he should have done is what Alex Volkanovski did historically well. One, he moved around a lot more instead of being like a stationary thing. So because Volkanovski moves around so much, Holloway has a hard time switching those stances because he's actually kind of chasing a little bit instead. But also, Volkanovski would switch and feint a lot. Feint.
Yeah.
And kind of freezing Holloway. That wasn't the case. There wasn't like no feints from Arnold Allen. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So, is there anything technical you want to talk about, or any side stories or something before we get to like matchmaking?
Were you surprised that there were no real earnest attempts to bring the fight to the ground by either guy?
I'm surprised there wasn't attempts. I'm not surprised it didn't go there. So I would have thought that Arnold would have tried. I mean, I know he tried in the 5th round, but it was more of a desperate, like, Hail Mary. Maybe I can get him down and catch a submission in a scramble or something. I didn't expect him to be able to get Max Holloway down. Max Holloway, we talk about his shit. His takedown defense is freaking fantastic, too. Max Holloway's fantastic everywhere.
Yeah, his takedown defense is fantastic. And I agree that Allen would have had a hard time bringing him down, but it just makes me wonder if at least a couple of earnest tries would have affected other things in the fight.
Yeah, maybe it drops the hands, maybe just I will say something about Max Holloway, and this is just me living in the moment. And Alex Volkanovski, I think, is the most talented fighter in MMA right now. The skill set, I'm talking his overall skill set. Max Holloway might be number 2. Like, that's how skilled he is. Now, I'm not saying he's the best pound for pound, big accomplishments, and all this nonsense, but I'm saying, like, actually watching the guy, he might be the second most talented guy there is.
I'm sure that I could think of other people in the conversation, but
Sure.
considering that it often feels like there are whole segments of his skill set that he barely even shows us.
Yeah. Like the
I
kicking game. The kicking
yeah.
game has suddenly showed up and
Mhm.
he's beating a top 3 or 4 featherweight in the world with a big suddenly he looks like Edson Barbosa out there with his kicks.
Mhm. And again, he's been doing it so long. He's been doing it so long at the highest levels. I mean, we're talking about a guy that fought Dustin Poirier when he was 20. And yeah, Dustin was young too, but Dustin also already had a bunch of fights in WEC and was much, much more experienced. He's been doing this at the highest level for so long. I'm sure, like, just for example, if he had a fight like his with Connor, one where he went out and like hurt his knee or broke a hand early, and all of a sudden he had to wrestle offensively to win a high level fight, I
Yeah.
guarantee you he'd bust out stuff that we did not think he had in his tool bag.
Yeah. He's shooting low singles or something, and he's lat dropping guys.
Yeah.
I mean, and just for the chat and for people listening, like the other guys we would consider Islam Makhachev, obviously.
Mhm.
Yeah, Brandon Moreno.
Yeah.
I know his ground game isn't the most complete, though I think it is underrated. I really think it's better than people give him credit. But Israel Adesanya, obviously.
Mhm.
Obviously John Jones.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
The point is a guy who has 3 losses to a guy in the division, clearly behind the guy in the division, to be even in the conversation, talks about how good he is. There's a little debate going on about Habib versus Max Holloway, not in a fight, but just overall careers. If Max Holloway, for some reason, decides, he goes back to Hawaii, he's in Oahu, the greatest place on earth. He's visits Lanikai Beach, and it's perfect. And he goes, "What the hell am I doing?" And just decides to retire. We never see him fight again. Where do you rank him all time?
Holloway never fights again. I want to say he ends up in the top 10, but
It's pretty close.
It's so crowded up there.
I mean, he's top 15.
Yeah, he's definitely top 15.
Like, to me, he's probably he's past guys like Matt Hughes.
I think no. He's past Hughes for sure.
Yeah.
I
don't want to get into like.
No,
I
but
just want to say like. Yeah, and as time goes by, the more talent that comes in, you have to start dropping guys down. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, Max Holloway is special, and that's the problem. That is the problem. That's why I didn't like this matchup. I mean, stylistically, it was a fun match to break down. It was even more fun fight to watch. It was super fun. I could watch these guys fight 10 times in a row. It was great. But now you have a dilemma. This is why Max Holloway pushing him up to 155, forcing him to go to 155 makes so much more sense than him fighting at 145. Because what do you do with him now? And I'll throw this out to the entire chat. Who should Max Holloway fight next?
You tell me, you text me mid-card and you're like, okay, let's matchmake these people.
Yeah.
And I have names next to all the names except for Holloway. Holloway, I have weight ?
Yeah. Yeah. So if Yair Rodriguez, so here's the problem. If Yair Rodriguez beats Alex Volkanovski, it seems easy. So many people say, "Oh, well, if Yair Rodriguez wins, you throw Max Holloway." But there is issues with that, and I'll tell you why. One, Alex Volkanovski doesn't deserve an immediate rematch. If he loses, like the run he's on, like he you know what I mean? He doesn't deserve it. Okay, you say you argue with me. Okay, Max Holloway deserves it. Okay. Max Holloway on a 1-fight winning streak deserves a title fight, but okay, he beat Arnold Allen. That's the best guy in the division or something like that. Okay. Max Holloway fights Yair Rodriguez. They only fought like 1 fight ago, 2 fights ago. Like, wasn't that long ago. That's an issue. But then also, say Max Holloway wins. Who's the number 1 contender? Probably Alex Volkanovski. And like you have a dilemma again.
Yeah.
They should have stipulation on the contract when they fought A third time.
Loser leaves weight class.
Or no, Max, you lose, you leave weight class.
And funny thing is, Alex won and he left the weight class anyway.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's just so guys are throwing out the Korean Zombie as an option, and fine. I'm gonna give you a name.
Okay.
And this is just the type of fights I'm booking Max Holloway in next. Because I've talked myself out of the Yair Rodriguez. Now it makes sense, you make it, but I think if he wins, you just hope.
I know what you're gonna say.
Okay, let me hear. Let's hear.
You're gonna say the Topuria Mitchell winner.
No.
Oh, what are you gonna say?
I'm gonna tell you why. I don't want him taking out any contenders. I think you should learn your lesson. He just took out the top contender for you. Like, let me ask you this question. Well, before I give you who I think Max Holloway should fight next. Alex Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez. Alex Volkanovski wins. Who does Alex Volkanovski fight next at featherweight? Oh no, just not fight next in general. Who's he fight next?
If he stays at heavyweight, I mean, he literally is probably looking at the Topuria Mitchell winner.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't Josh Emmett fighting a stud too? Who's Josh Emmett fighting?
Josh Emmett is fighting Ilya Topuria. No, Topuria and Emmett are fighting. It's Evloev and Mitchell that are fighting. Sorry.
Oh, Evloev, Mitchell, Topuria, and yeah.
And one of the winners of those two is probably your next title challenger.
Yeah. But you're jumping back pretty far by the rankings. So okay, I'll give you two other guys. So one, he goes up to 155.
Yeah.
I wrote down Topuria as Topuria, Evloev, Emmett and Mitchell will both be on a 1-fight winning streak. So Brian Ortega is on a losing. He lost his last fight and he's injured, and you're starting to get into rematches and all this. You know who it might be?
Oh,
we have a fight. I think about 3 weeks from now. It sounds crazy. If Henry Cejudo wins, it might be Henry Cejudo. He's asking to move up to 145. He's already talked about it.
He's never going to have a more palatable matchup in terms of just sheer size.
Sure. He's on the size now at 135. Never mind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the problem, like, that's the most marketable fight, is it not?
It's definitely marketable. I don't think Cejudo is as marketable as he thinks he is.
No. But if he wins the belt again after leaving.
But I mean, he is pretty marketable. Like, he's sometimes a little annoying, but he's marketable. He's memorable. There are few enough people south of 155 pounds that are memorable in any way. So yeah, it would make sense. And even if he doesn't have huge off the charts name recognition, he is a guy who will reliably talk it up regardless of opponent. He is kind of a Colby Covington type that way, not in terms of the subject matter of their persona, but someone that, irrespective of who they're against, they will talk it up and they'll try to get under the other person's skin.
Yeah, he'll sell it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Whereas even a Diaz brother or Jorge Masvidal, if their opponent is respectful, they're kind of respectful, and you never get the fireworks.
Sure. Yeah. Plus Diaz he's hanging out with Ghostface Killer right now in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. All right, I'll give you the guy that I give it. It's not like some big suspense or anything. It's just I'm just gonna book him in fun fights that it's not contenders. So I'm gonna put him against the guy he's never fought, who's just fought tonight. I'm gonna put him against Edson Barbosa. It's a fun fight. It could be a fight night main event.
It's a fun fight for everyone but Barbosa.
Yeah, no, I know, but Barbosa, he's willing to fight anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we'll get to his fight when we get to it, which is next. But he's still in the mindset that I'm a future champ in one of these divisions. So he's absolutely taking it, whether it's a bad style matchup or not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Edson Barbosa would fight if you put a rhino in there. He'd be like, yeah, I can. He's got 4 legs. It's even better. I can have even more to kick. Dev says, I'm assuming Henry beats Aljo. I'm not assuming that because I said, of course, that's if he beats Aljo. I am a pro at this. Dev guy fills it a couple of times. Now he's giving me tips.
We love Dev.
Stealing my glory. All So yeah, at least everybody seems like we're in agreement that the Holloway situation, it would have been better for the UFC if Arnold Allen won, or at least better matchmaking wise. I don't know if it's better because Holloway is such a fan favorite. Arnold Allen, what are we doing with him?
Allen, I don't think he should fall too far out of the title picture. You want to keep him fighting top 10 people. You don't want him to take 2 losses in a row. I mean, he just lost his first fight in the UFC. He just had a 12-fight win streak snapped. Don't let the train go too far off the rails. If you want to give him like one of the people in the Topuria Emmett fight, like if the winner of that is next in line for a title shot, then give him the loser of that. Otherwise, yeah, even give him the winner of it. Like, or again, the Mitchell Evloev winner, maybe something like that. Like,
yeah, I'm okay with any of those. Okay,
speaking hypothetically, I still think Arnold Allen probably gives Volkanovski as tough a fight as any of the other people that are kind of orbiting around this picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's an easier matchup for Volkanovski now that Volkanovski's kind of seen a way to be, because you've never seen Arnold Allen lose in the UFC. So now to see how you can beat him, nobody is better at studying a guy than Alexander Volkanovski. You know what's funny? A guy we didn't mention, and shame on me for not saying this. We keep talking about Aljamain's. I mean, as Henry Cejudo is the guy that if he wins, what if Aljo wins? Well, Aljo's already talked about moving up.
Aljo versus any of the people that we've been talking about in this whole conversation sounds bananas to me. If Aljo wants to move up and challenge Volkanovski, that solves the problem for the featherweight division, obviously.
Yeah.
If he ends up, like, if he has to get past Max first, if he has to fight Allen, if he has to fight Topuria, any of those, like, sounds sensational. And Aljo, he would not be terribly undersized at featherweight. I mean, he's not.
He's taller than Volkanovski, we know that.
Yeah, I mean, he's taller than Volkanovski. He's probably about the same height as Allen. You know, they're probably like they're both about 5'8", 5'9",
broad,
and
but yeah,
and and he has such an interesting and unique skill set. Are we counting
the kid and play high top? Like how high are we counting?
The high top always makes me think he's taller than he actually is. Like, yeah,
showing our age is like we're the only ones like kid and play. What the hell are you talking about? Yeah. I'm agree with that. Like, I could even see, like, what if Volkanovski loses? They want to do Max Holloway, then you could do Arnold Allen versus Volkanovski. I mean, there's a lot of options, but I think you convinced me, like Evloev if he won or something like that makes, or even Bryce Mitchell. Like I could do something like that.
Yeah,
All right, guys, we have 13 more fights we could do. We're gonna go much quicker through the prelims than we normally. I say that every time, undercard, but then we don't. So, Edson Barboza took on Billy Quarantillo. Edson Barboza won by first round KO. Edson Barboza just reminding people of how dangerous of a striker he is. Truly, when I think of Edson Barboza, like one day he's gonna retire, I'm gonna say, Ben, Edson Barboza retired. How you gonna remember him? And then you'll ask me. My nose thing is he has as good of a highlight reel as there is.
There you go. That's exactly it. The highlight reel does not always match up with the stature of the fighter, because if you were to list out the greatest lightweights in history, or lightweights / featherweights kind of in his same range, he's not breaking the top 50. And unless there was some like weird confluence of circumstances, I don't think he's ever even been a top 10 fighter. He's never strung together enough wins to do that, but he has one of the 4 or 5 greatest highlight reels in the history of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just
it's like him, Vitor, Anderson Silva, maybe somebody else. Yeah, Francis Ngannou.
Yeah,
I mean it's absolutely spectacular. I thought Billy Quarantillo was doing everything right. This is not going to be the theme of this card, where I don't think guys did the right thing to put themselves in the avenue to victory. Quarantillo did. He said, I got to pressure this guy. I got to crowd him. I can't let him get his kicks off. Stayed right in his face. I'm going to beat him with pressure, which is great until you get kneed in the face.
And Barboza, he's a veteran. He's got 27 28 UFC fights. He's been hurt. He's hurt other people. He's gotten so smart. He saw the kind of shot behind the overhand right. That time he took the punch flush. He didn't even get out of the way of the punch. He didn't even like slip it. It just hit him, kind of slapped his head aside because he was already concentrating on, I'm gonna knock this dude's head on backwards, like Daffy Duck getting blown up in like a Looney Tunes cartoon, where like his duck bill's all of a sudden on the back of his head.
Oh, geez.
Brilliant stuff. I mean, there's kind of like other people that are way up there on that highlight reel list. There's intelligence and nuance and technique behind what he does. If all he was a super fast Twitch athlete, I mean, he'd be gone. He'd be Melvin Gillard, a guy with like a couple of incredible knockouts and like a 3-8 record in the UFC. No, he is a brilliant striker.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely one of the greatest strikers in the history of the UFC. Quarantillo, I mean, it is what it is. He walked into a tough shot, and I already said that I would do Barbosa versus Max Holloway. I know I'm in the minority there. I know it doesn't make sense in a ranking sense, and that just to me, it's like I'm just gonna book. I could see Max Holloway saying I'm not taking a fight like that, but this is again, it's me being the supreme being of the world. They can't say no. But what are you doing with Edson Barboza? We'll throw it out to the chat too. What they would do with Edson Barboza.
I'm slowing my roll is what I'm doing when it comes to Edson Barboza.
The complete opposite of what I'm doing.
His highlight reel distracts you from the point that winning this fight made him 3-3 at featherweight. So he is just barely 500 at featherweight without even having fought any real top featherweights. He's 500 against like the Dan Iges and Giga Chikadzes of the world, like outside fringe contenders. And he's barely 500, and that's after leaving lightweight on 2 straight losses. He's not a top fighter. He's just a top highlight reel. I'm giving him to a guy that's lost recently, and I want to build back up off his name. I'm giving him to Jack Shore.
Okay. So, yeah, we both went 2 different extremes. I'm selling him on the highlight reel. I'm showing Max Holloway, and all this, the greatest boxer, however you want to promote it. Then I'm saying, and then I'm showing his highlight reel, the kicks and all that. Oh, what's the boxer gonna do against the kicks? And that's how I'm selling it.
Just put together a 2-minute like sizzle reel of Barboza, like kicking people's heads off and then kneeling down and like pointing to Jesus as if to say, "Forgive me for what I just did to this mother effer." Yeah.
Quarantillo, I mean, there's definitely talent there. The guy's good. He first like probably really higher profile fight. I would match him with another guy in that same position. Kind of one guy gets back in the picture, the other guy's gone. I'd go with Nathaniel Wood.
I'm in the same general range. I just thought it would be a funny style matchup to put him against Damon Jackson and say, okay, one of you guys has to win the first round. Who's it going to be?
Yeah.
Because
Maybe neither guy throws any punches. They do the complete opposite. They just look at each other. We get like a Rose Namajunas,
just 0 strikes thrown in the first round as they just wait.
Who was the guy that just lost in the PFL? The guy didn't land a punch. Who? Oh, it was New England's own Jorge De Castro. He lost a match, a 15-minute match. The guy did not land a single punch. He beat him with just kicks.
It's bad, dude.
Yeah, I've seen fights, and with just kicks, a high kick knockout right away. But I mean, 15 minutes and the guy didn't land a punch and you lose. That's pretty bad. Before that, Dustin Jacoby took on Asmat Mirzakhanov. Mirzakhanov, it remains undefeated. I was impressed. Beating a guy like Dustin Jacoby. Mirzakhanov, he's got legit power. Like, he didn't finish Jacoby, but he dropped a good strike on Jacoby 3 or 4 times.
He dropped him 3 or 4 times, and I use this word carefully. Like, understand that I am never calling any professional fighter scared. Like, they're not scared.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And especially Dustin Jacoby, who fought for a glory title against Alex frickin' Pereira, was not scared. But he was clearly shook and taken out of his comfort zone by the power and the threat of the wrestling. Between those two, Jacoby, until very late in the fight, did not pull the trigger like we're used to seeing him do. We're used to seeing him in charge in fights.
Yeah.
Just like whether the person's trying to strike with him or trying to take him down, for the most part, he is in charge. He's just a very cool customer. But Yeah, he was shook by what Mirzakhanov gave him the first round. And I was surprised at what an easy time Mirzakhanov had closing the distance, getting inside Jacoby's kicking range, and landing clean punches on him.
And power, like clean power dropping the guy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was impressed. I mean, he's well rounded. He can wrestle. He can hit hard. Obviously, the glaring weakness I saw tonight was his cardio. I mean, he definitely did fade late in the fight.
Which, dude, if you're the smaller guy and your cardio fades, that's not a good place to be.
No. That said, I thought Dustin Kobe, who I think Dustin Kobe's very talented,
But
I thought he had terrible fight IQ. There was about the 2-minute mark. He's, Mirzakhanov's trying to like pull him in and like let's clinch, and his team is screaming at like break away, because he was landing and hurting Mirzakhanov. You give him 2 minutes. If he goes out like Arnold Allen did around 5, he might have knocked him out.
okay, so you are talking about in the third round.
Yeah,
Totally agree. Because as it is, he had him hurt pretty bad. If he'd given himself more time to work with, knowing that Mirzakhanov was tired,
he was going for takedowns and like, what are you doing, dude?
I think Jacoby is gonna watch the tape on this fight and be really upset at himself, because that was his first real clean loss to me of like his return.
Yeah, I thought he
beat the UFC.
Yeah,
I thought he beat Khalil Roundtree as well. But either way, even if we thought the decision was righteous, he would have watched it and been like, nah, I beat that guy. But here, if he's honest with himself, he watches the Mirzakhanov fight and he's like, no, I straight up lost 2 rounds, and the second one might have been a 10-8.
Yeah, now it might have not changed. He might not have knocked him out, but he basically said, oh, I have no chance of winning, so let me just wrestle. Like I don't get it. Like, by him wrestling, he gave himself no chance of winning, I should say.
Yeah.
Instead of, he was landing big shots. I mean, if he could have like went down to the body a couple times, started getting tired, the guy thinking you're gonna go to the body, and then you throw a high kick to the head and just clean him, whatever. Mirzakhanov is, he's undefeated. He's not young. I know that.
He's 36.
Oh my God, he's not. Jeez, he's way young. He's way older than I. I thought I was gonna guess like 33 or something like that. Yeah, he needs a ranked opponent like pretty much immediately. Before that, Iwan Kutalaba took on the new beach bod Tanner Boser. Going to the gym with Ben over here, looking good. I don't know what was the buildup to the fight this week. What was going on? I saw so many people like all excited for Tanner Boser fight. I saw people like putting the top. There's like 3 or 4 fights. Like, what's your favorite fight on the card? And this wasn't the dead last, like 0% votes. I think I had more votes than Gutierrez and Munoz, and people were just excited about Tanner Boser. And I'm like, what? Am I missing something on Tanner? Like, why? Yeah, he went down to light heavyweight. Cool. Like, he lost some fat. Cool. But even if he won this fight, like, I still would be excited about Tanner Boser. Like, what was I missing? I mean, I get it. He's got a mullet and he's a Canadian with missing a tooth, and but he's not a talented guy.
Well, I even picked him to win this fight, but I wasn't that excited, and I wouldn't have been that excited if he won. I just have kind of given up on Kutalaba.
Yeah. I'm not dogging anybody who picked him over Kutalaba.
Yeah.
It's Iwan Kutalaba. Like, you pick anybody you want with Iwan Kutalaba. Like, I understand why anybody would. Yeah. My point was how everyone was so excited for, Tanner Boser finally moving out. It wasn't like when we were calling for Frankie Edgar to move down. Wait, it was Tanner Boser.
Yeah, agreed. Whoever won this fight tonight had a long way to go, even to get to the top 15 in a frankly depleted division. Yeah, it took the place of an unranked heavyweight slobber knocker on this card.
Yeah, okay.
This is the fight that normally would have had like Parker Porter in it, but they just didn't have any heavyweights, so they gave us this.
Yeah, and I mean, Iwan Kutalaba, he caught him with a very clean right hand, and for a second, I said, "Oh no, Kutalaba's going to find a way to lose this." When he hurt Boser, and Boser, he falls down, he gets out, gets buckled a couple of times, like oh man, he's going to get knocked out, and then Kutalaba shoots for a takedown. And I've been giving Kudalaba credit for wrestling more. There was a period he wasn't wrestling, so but it was more like that moment, like, oh no, he's gonna let him off the hook, and then Bose is gonna come back and win, and Kudalaba is gonna Kudalaba, and then he didn't. He just pounded his face in, got like that, in that like mid whizzer position where Bose is trying to get up using like a whizzer and just ate. Like I saw some people complaining about the stoppage, like, oh, he was on his way up, like. He was on his way up to heaven if they didn't jump in. Like, kind of little was punching his face in.
Yeah, problem with that wizard position is you might be getting up, but also the hand that protects your face is kind of tied up.
Yeah, it's like it's stuck over here, and you're trying to like get up on the cage on this side and post, and 2-3 more shots, and Bozo would have been unconscious. Like that was a very good stoppage.
Yeah, I didn't mind. I didn't mind it.
Dane Fox tweeted something. Dane Fox from
course.
Bloody Elbow, one of the really good dudes at Bloody Elbow. He says a controlled Kudalaba could be a title contender, and I do think it's a little bit of living in the moment, and I will never accuse anybody of doing that because I love to do it myself. But I do think there's a little bit of truth there. Like there is the talent there for Kudalaba. If like there's glimpses of talent you can see every once in a while.
Do you know what Iwan Kudalaba is? He's big white Melvin Gillard. He is capable of stupendous feats of athleticism and explosion for the division. He has undeniable power. He has wrestling, which he badly underuses, and he has horrible defensive liabilities on the floor. Saying that Kudalaba, if he were controlled, could be a top 15 light heavyweight is like saying that Melvin Gillard, if he didn't keep diving into guillotines, could have been a top lightweight. Well, sure, but that's a meaningless hypothetical. Like Iwan Kudalaba is what he is. Like
Kyle Johnson summed it up pretty good. It is an oxymoron. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But in fairness, this fight he was more controlled. Now, of course, when he hit the ground and he was going berserker on it, but I mean, just like he wasn't coming out throwing haymakers right away. He was, he stepped in. I like the Melvin Gillard. I was thinking like Abdul Razak Al Hassan, where he has those moments where he just starches a guy in spectacular fashion, and then it's like, oh yeah, no, you still are not good.
Yeah,
just get you like going. You're like, oh man, like every time you pick against him, you're still like, you don't feel comfortable making that pick, or like Phil Hawes. You're like, oh man, like I just picked against Phil Hawes. Is that gonna bite me in the ass? So, let's move on. Before that, Pedro Munoz took on Chris Gutierrez, and Pedro Munoz showed he's still elite. I know we both picked against them. It seemed like everybody on planet Earth was, writing his eulogy. Pedro Munoz, I mean, he still got it.
And it's the way he won that really impressed me, because it was a win completely without smoke and mirrors. He came in with a good game plan. He looked athletic. He did get hit cleanly a few times, showed no serious problems for it, and his gas tank was fine. So it wasn't the kind of win that left us still wondering, is he shot?
Sure.
No, he might still be a top 10 guy and just not a top 5 guy. It throws his whole kind of mostly losing streak of the last 3 years into a whole different light.
Yeah.
So yeah.
One thing he dropped Chris Gutierrez early, and I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial. I don't know if Gutierrez ever recovered, truly, like 100% recovered, because the way he fought on his back foot like the entire fight. Yeah, he had output. He had moments, but he never stepped on the gas. Now, that said, it's a 135-pound striker battle, so it was still like, when the crowd was booing and the commentators like, what the hell are they booing for? Like, this is good output. Yeah, it is. But it to me, it seemed like I can punch a punching bag 100 times at one speed and, get a little tired, or I can punch a punch bag 10 times at a different speed and power, and I'm more tired.
Absolutely.
Felt like that. Like he just, I don't think, I think he was rocked. I do. I really do.
I agree. It felt like not fully survival mode, but just one step removed from that for a lot of the fights. Just, yeah, like never really got his offense untracked. And he was on the back foot a lot and he threw decent volume considering that. But we learn now that when he's on the back foot, he stops throwing in combination
Yeah.
and he stops throwing kicks entirely.
Yeah. I think he was like almost like running on fumes.
Yeah.
Instinct than anything. I think Munoz's pressure is still really good. That's one thing that we've talked about in the past, and I thought this was one of the better displays of it. He kind of worked to that mid-range game where we took away a lot of Gutierrez's kicking because of that. Yeah, I think it was a really good performance. Let's matchmake these guys.
Okay.
Let's go with Munoz. To me, it's like he showed he's still a top 10, top 12 guy. What are you doing with him?
He showed that he's definitely still a factor and a good fighter, but he is a long way from breaking back into full relevance.
Yeah.
Another guy that's in a similar situation and is coming off a kind of redeeming win is Rob Font. So let them fight each other.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that'd be a hell of a fight too.
I like Kyle Johnson's Cheeto or really Jan. I think that makes sense.
He's thinking of guys ranked higher that are coming off a loss. I'm thinking of a guy ranked similar or lower that's coming off a win. Either philosophy works for me.
I'm going a different route than both you guys. I'm thinking like same thing. Like, yeah, Pedro got a nice win, so he showed that he's still a name and he's still talented. And what I was thinking is he's so far away from the title. I'm going to use him as a test for guys who kind of deserve that step up, that name. And I think Jonathan Martinez is one of those guys. He's been on this huge winning streak, and he kind of deserves another name. And so I do Munoz and Jonathan Martinez.
And you know what? I would worry, like if I'm somebody that is a fan of Jonathan Martinez or wants to see him do well, then I'm wondering, okay, Jonathan Martinez can be vulnerable to being put on his back foot. Can Munoz do that same thing to him? Or after watching that fight, are Munoz and his team, are Martinez and his team able to put together a game plan to deal with it?
Yeah. I'm not really give up on Gutierrez. I mean, he was in a nice winning streak. But again, that division is so loaded that I don't think you can just give him a bounce back fight. I think that is to me the murderer's row division. I'm giving his name to somebody else on the rise. So I'm giving Javid Bashara a chance. See what he can do.
Okay, so you're feeding the old lion to the new lion. I'm fine with that.
Which I love doing. You know I love doing that.
Yeah. And I wanted to give him somebody that is kind of floating around out there, has taken a couple losses recently, but obviously still has some competitive value. I'm thinking Honey Barcelos.
Okay. But I mean, how high Barcelos can go? Let's list
off the top 50 see if we get to 30 before.
Either way, I mean, that's such a great division. It really is. I was thinking like they could be like a co-main event of a fight night, like Gutierrez back in a third from the top in a fight night. Well, it'd have to be below the Slobodknocker heavyweight fight, but other than that, Clay Guida took on Rafi Garcia. Garcia won by unanimous decision. Not a good look for Clay Guida. I mean, he got pieced up, and he got pieced up basically with just one punch, a jab.
Oh, I wrote the whole recap for Sherdog. I'm like, reasoning that if it ain't broke, no fix it. Rafa Garcia leaned almost entirely on his jab,
Yeah, jab.
Hey, it's on the other guy to change up his game plan if he doesn't like it.
You know what it felt like? I was watching that fight. I'm like, he can't move out of the way of the jab. It felt like when I play. I don't play often, but when I play video games, I play with my 8-year-old son, and he's got Smash Brothers and I don't know these games, and it's like when we fight each other, and he just keeps doing the same move to me over and over, and I don't know how to stop it. But usually I die in like a minute. I couldn't imagine if that happened for 15 minutes straight, and there was a crowd of people around me chanting my name as he just keeps hitting the same button. I'm like, why can't I stop this?
Yeah.
Um, one thing that stood out to me, and we said this on the preview, is that Clay Guida could still, surprisingly, at this age, can still wrestle. That might not be the case.
And only if he tries.
He tried a couple times, and they weren't even close.
Yeah, it's alarming that the one time he actually timed things right and got in real deep on a single, the kind of thing that would have spelled the end of the round, like even just like 2 or 3 years ago. Like he barely got Garcia down at all, and they were back on the feet within 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminded me of this. I was fixing I had to ride a lawnmower, and I was fixing it, and I get it started up. It started up really great, and I'm like, "God, it feels great." And then you put it into gear to go, and then it died. Like, as I felt like it got into the hips, and then just died. You know, things will not go well for Clay Guida if his wrestling's gone. I am hoping this was a stylistic bad matchup. Garcia, is an underrated grappler. We talked about that on the previous show. If he can't get takedowns, it's not gonna. We're gonna have some bad fights for. And now that he can't even stop he can't avoid a jab for a guy who's not really known for his striking.
He made Rafa Garcia look like prime Rory McDonald, just jabbing you to death and having like bulletproof takedown defense. That's not a good look.
He looked like Oscar De La Hoya with that jab.
Yeah, and Clay played with all of our emotions afterwards.
Yeah, I know. I saw some people. He like did like a fake retirement.
He sure did.
And he charged the gloves, and people were like doing their everyone on Twitter is they're writing their their best legend and hashtag legend never die and caveman and all this nonsense. And
it's a bunch of people Googling what was a good Clay Guida fight so they could tweet something.
Yeah. And then he didn't retire. I think I was the only person to tweet is like, yeah, Clay Guida didn't retire, but he probably should have. Yeah, I saw some people try to flip it around. Which media member I know that will never say, "Oh, fantastic, Clay Guida didn't retire." I'm like, yeah, I probably should have, because he's Let me do this on the spot, 5 seconds, just a straight 5 seconds. So Clay Guida is in the UFC Hall of Fame for the fight, but he's not in individually.
Yeah.
Will he be a UFC Hall of Famer individually?
Not for as long as unless they have a major culture change in who they pick and how, probably not.
Really? So I'm saying he's going, because they put everybody in. But you know how I felt. I feel like the UFC Hall of Fame is basically like the WWE Hall of Fame, where eventually your Koku Bewares get in, and your whatever. Like, not everyone, not always your Hulk Hogan's and your Andre the Giants. Like, you get a couple Coco Bewares and I don't know, Virgil. And
did Coco Beware's bird get to be in too? Is he in like the animal like wing of the?
Yeah.
Well, along with like Jake the Snake Roberts is like Snake from
Snake. Yeah. But didn't Jake the Snake Roberts snake have a name?
It did have a name, but I can't remember.
I can't, Damien.
Oh, dang.
1980s wrestling still in my head.
Wow.
All right, let's move on. Bill Algeo took on TJ Brown, winning by second round submission. Algeo, while it happened, the fight was fun.
Oh, yes.
Like,
yes, it was.
Brown was getting in Algeo's face. I thought it was a hell of a fight. Brown was landing some really, really hard shots. But Brown always finds a way to lose, and his way to lose is walk into a perfect shot and get submitted shortly after. Just talk to me about this fight. Like, do you feel good about Algeo? Do you feel bad about Brown, or nothing? Like,
I feel the same about both guys that I did before. I mean, I picked Algeo to win. You picked Algeo to win. I didn't pick him to get the finish because I didn't think he'd hurt him that bad on the feet. I figured, okay, Algeo's a better grappler and a more kind of sound and conservative grappler. It's going to end up on the ground, and Algeo will just win the second and third rounds going away. But he crushed him, and with Brown compromise, he throttled him, man. I mean, he's a good grappler. He's a good fighter. He's a good kind of mid level guy in arguably the best division in the UFC. That's not a bad place to be. Like, you and I have had the conversation many times recently. Being the 40th best featherweight in terms of your skills makes you better than like the 10th best heavyweight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's got such a more complete game than like Jairzinho Rosenstrike, who's probably like the number 7 heavyweight right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one I do feel I was never high on TJ Brown. I'm enjoying the chat with Bass breaking down that he's supposed to be from Little Rock. There's no
Downtown Little Rock, and there is no downtown Little Rock.
like Kyle Johnson with a nice reference tonight with the downtown Julie Brown. Nice job. Nice job. Kyle might be a little older than we think he is.
He might be, or yeah. Like Kyle's dad is standing behind him. It's like, oh, say this.
Yeah.
But then Aljo tried to cut a hell of a promo on the mic afterwards. Everybody was kind of wild in their post-fight interviews, and I just think it's because the crowd is so live, and this card had quite a few people that this was their first time fighting in front of a live crowd. There are a lot of kind of Apex guys here, so they went crazy. Aljo, normally his personality is kind of like his fight styles, just kind of meat and potatoes, straightforward, and trying to spice it up. It didn't work for me. It was like, it's like trying to put like ghost peppers in your oatmeal. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but just let oatmeal be oatmeal.
Yeah, it flopped bad.
Yeah.
TJ Brown, I just saw a wrestler who's falling in love with his hands, and it's obviously good to become well-rounded, but it can also be a downfall. I just hope Bo Nickel doesn't fall in love with his hands. So speaking of falling in love with your striking, before that, a fight that was way too low down the card, but Brandon Royval took on Matthias Nicolau, and Brandon Royval, what a moment, knocking out Nicolau with a perfectly timed knee, followed up with some shots. Spectacular. I mean, absolutely
what a beautiful piece of work. The perfectly placed intercepting knee, because you've talked before about how hard it is to hit a moving object, to throw your strike where they're gonna be, and generally speaking, it's harder to target something that's moving vertically than something that's moving laterally.
Sure.
So he nails him with the knee and then just zaps him with the punch on the same side, which is the coolest thing. Like, hitting him with a right knee, then a right hand on the way down. Just, yeah, beautiful stuff technically. This is why flyweight rules.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Absolutely. We don't get stoppages at flyweight often, but when we do, this was spectacular. Brandon Royval, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. Because of the whole Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno long run, a lot of the top contenders had to face each other.
Yep.
So a lot of them got picked off and this and that. And did he, like, they were talking about title shot. He was talking about filling in for Moreno, Pantoja as the backup weighing in. I saw that. Is that the right move? Is he the next guy? Like, is his Brandon Moreno's next fight, UFC pay-per-view, fighting either Brandon Moreno or Alexander Pantoja?
That's what I've got down. I've got Royval, Pantoja, Moreno winner. It's the way the timing happened to turn out. You said it. Figueiredo and Moreno put the division on hold for basically almost 2 years. A lot of the top contenders had to fight each other. A lot of the planes that were kind of circling the airport got winged. And it just happened that it looks like the merry-go-round's going to stop, and he's going to be the top contender that's not coming off a loss and hasn't already fought whoever the champ is.
Yeah.
It would have been Nicolau. It should have been Nicolau. He was undefeated in the UFC since coming back. He was 4-0.
Yeah.
He was, but you can't account for getting your head kneed off.
And Brandon Moreno and Alejandro Pantoja, when are they fighting? Is it like summertime?
Moreno and Pantoja are fighting on,
also like June, July.
They're fighting on July 8th, and so are Figueiredo and Kopp. So what I was going to say is, for Nicolau, something that shakes out of there might be appropriate for him as well. Like, if he's willing to wait a little bit.
Oh, okay. Oh, I won't wait. I went down to Bruno Silva.
That works too. Yeah.
So if they're fighting in July, we're talking, it's like a long layoff. We're talking October, November.
Probably.
maybe December. That's a long time for them to wait. Dev talks about that the way the Moreno Royval fight ended. I don't want to say fluky, but I mean he did get injured.
Yeah.
In the fight, did Moreno cause that? Possibly, or but it's a selling point.
Yeah, you can sell that it's not going to look that way next time.
Yeah,
Like that result didn't make me never want to see those guys fight again.
my one concern, and I don't think that he deserves this because they did pass the belt around a little bit. I'm wondering if Pantoja beats Moreno, would they give Moreno an automatic rematch? I don't think they should, because doesn't Pantoja already beat Moreno, so he'd be up 2-0. So I think it's a little trickier. But I'm sure someone's gonna comment. Yeah, well, Izzy was down 0-3, a little different. But anyways, really, really good. Brandon Ravel, probably going to be at least on one of our Bulls lists, as that was spectacular. Ed Herman, Zach Cummings. I will say this: we shitted on the fight a little bit, not the people. Not the people. I think I said this. I don't know if I said this in the air or just to you off the air. Ed Herman is one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's a great dude. I've never met Zach Cummings, but he seems like a family guy, and the action was not good. Ed Herman, his one thing about Ed Herman you could say is historically durable. His durability is not there anymore. He's getting dropped by a former welterweight now fighting at light heavyweight, who had a nice little gun on him too. He wasn't hitting the weight room. The durability is not there anymore. He got really slow, really slow.
Oh, he was slow when he was 29. Ed Herman was one of the slowest welterweights or slowest middleweights in the UFC when he was in his athletic prime. Here, he made Zach Cummings look so fast because he would have his hands up in exactly the right place, and Cummings would just throw a jab that would hit him square and just go right past his guard. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It looked like two guys playing Tekken, and one guy's controller ran out of charge. And he's running over to plug it in and grab another controller. And me and Mike's boom, boom, boom. Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. A nice moment comes. I kind of wish Ed Herman had a moment like Zach Cummings, because of the two of them, he kind of deserves it more. He deserves the big win in his hometown. They could have had him fighting in Seattle or Vancouver's kind of close to Washington, right? In that area. I don't know.
Vancouver, British Columbia. It's right on the border. Yeah, it's okay. You drive right across, and that's where you get your weed.
It's not like I'm married to a Canadian. I should know my Canadian geography a little bit, and Finnish. He was the East Coast. I kind of wish he had one of those moments when he retired, being how long he's been in the UFC.
Yeah.
But it was nice.
The Ultimate Fighter season 3.
Yeah. And he was, and if you remember, he wasn't the guy going into the season, 2-0. No, he had a long career before that.
Yeah.
He was the known guy. Ed Herman's on this.
Yeah, Ed Herman. Yeah,
it was nice. Cummings had a nice moment. So I'll ask you, when your grandkids ask you about Zach Cummings. No, when Zach Cummings, what are you gonna say about? How are you gonna remember Zach Cummings? Someone mentions you, Zach Cummings, 10 years from now.
A guy that was actually always a better fighter and more accomplished than I gave him credit for until I reminded myself and watched his fight. He was actually a really good fighter, skilled fighter, but because he just kind of looked like a cut and paste Midwest journeyman, I was kind of threw him in that category with those guys, and he was a niftier fighter than that. And clearly he's got incriminating photos of somebody stashed away, because considering that he's the other half owner of Glory MMA and he fought and not a word was said about it. Is he in the witness protection program? Did he make a deal and James Krause is going away and Zach Cummings
30C West got me good. Yes, nice job, my man. He said, "Yo, that guy's funny."
Yeah, kill me, man.
He gets me at least once an episode. You know what? It's funny as much as a joke. I think if someone mentions that, this might be one of the moments I'm gonna think of. Like I'm gonna think of this, like one of
Well,
the guys who got to have a nice send off.
all the intangibles are there. Like he gets to go away in his hometown,
Yeah,
holding
his
his
kid
daughter,
coming in.
crying.
Yeah.
His opponent retires too, and it doesn't ruin anything for anybody.
No, it's like
Like,
nicer.
yeah, it's not like Chris Barnett ruining John Volante's like retirement by beating him and then snatching the mic. No, it was good.
Yeah. Ed Herman, how do you remember him?
A really good fighter for a very long time who probably never got his due either because his fights were not appointment viewing, even in his prime.
No.
He just kind of had a quiet personality. Again, even in the days when he was getting a mic stuck in front of his face more often. I mean, we're talking about a guy that he probably had 20 UFC fights at the time he begged to be put into the next UFC video game so that his son could play as him. Like, dude,
Yeah.
what a diss. He didn't ask to be on the cover. He just wanted to be in the game.
game.
So his son didn't have to like go in and make a redheaded creative fighter. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is my
No.
dad. No, my dad's really in the UFC.
Yeah. No, Dad, they won't let us turn the color down even more. He's too tan for you, Dad. Yeah, I just remember like a guy who just was able to fight at a higher level for a long time. I mean, with a much lower ceiling, but the highlight of his career, he was a top 20 guy. He was never close to a top.
He was a top 20 guy when there were 25 middleweights in the UFC.
Yeah. He was top 20 guy. There's 19 middleweights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when he went to Strike Force and fought Jacare the first time.
Yeah. He's a guy that if you beat him, you beat Ed Herman, you had a good one on your record. Like he was that good test. Like we talking about like Dustin Jacoby today. You beat Dustin Jacoby, wow, you're good. You beat Herman, you're good. He was able to keep in the UFC for a long time without being spectacular, without having a big personality, just kind of grinding along for like, I don't know, 15 years or whatever it was. Maybe longer than that. I don't know how many years it was. So good luck to both those guys. I know Ed Herman will be continuing coaching. I don't know what's that coming to do. Open up a betting company. I don't know.
Or maybe just open up another gym without James Krause this time.
I'm telling you, a Glory Fitness and MMA. Before that, Jillian Robinson took on I don't know how I say it, Piera.
You say Piera?
Did I say it right?
Yeah, you said it perfect. You said it perfectly right. I mean, with any luck, you may not have to say it that many more times. But when you make Jillian Robertson, look like, see, I don't know what I learned here because in the first round I didn't learn anything because Robertson got taken down and then swept from the bottom. I'm like, okay, that's Jillian Robertson's game. But then when she got an effortless takedown in the first 5 seconds of the second round, I'm like, okay, is this because Rodriguez is bad? Like there's still Jocelyn Edwards energy floating around the cage?
Yeah.
Or is Jillian Robertson a better offensive wrestler at 115 than she was at 125? Because that was always the hole in her game. Yeah, her striking's ugly, but that's only a problem because she ends up having to strike.
Yeah.
But if she can take people down, then she has a whole new life there.
Yeah. And she was taken down. I don't know. There's not much to say. Like she got taken down and Jillian Robinson does what Jillian Robinson does. I will say that she looks better in the division. Maybe topside grappler, not being undersized might be a good thing for her. I mean, we talked about that on the previous show. I do like that she was trying to strike to set up her takedowns.
Yeah.
So that was good. Big question was it a tap? Do you think it was or wasn't?
I think it was a tap.
I don't know. I don't know if it was. And I'll tell you why. He was touched once. He was, the leg that you would push out to get your arm out. When she touched the leg, she went right to like the other side of the knee. So she was fighting off like she didn't tap. Now it might have been for a second you felt it, pain, you go to tap, and then all of a sudden, but as you reach up, you turn your body. I don't know. Sure, might have been. What I'll say is this: it's the referee jumping in there and stopping it is good for two reasons. For Rodriguez, one, so she doesn't have her arm broken.
Yep.
Which is obviously the number one reason. The number two reason, now you have an excuse. Now you have I would have won at the referee jump because you were about to be down 2-0.
Yeah.
And you would have needed a stoppage, and I don't think you were getting it.
And not to mention, there were 45 seconds left in the round at the time of the did she or didn't she tap. I'm not sure she gets out of that armbar.
I don't know. Yeah, that's another good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah. I don't think she gets out. She might get her. Yeah. If the referee didn't jump in there, she might get her arm broken, or she just taps 5 seconds later. It wasn't bad. Like, stopping it wasn't bad. Like, I can totally understand the argument for a tap. I mean, that's it. But I also, I've heard some people say, well, that's why we need to have like a 3-tap rule or something like that.
Yeah.
The referees have so much going on. You want them sitting there counting if there was 3 taps, if there was only 2 taps, if there were 2.5 taps, and is, in the heat of a moment when someone's cranking your armbar, you don't want that extra 2 taps because your arm might be broke.
Yeah.
I know they did say it was a verbal tap, so maybe it was a scream. So yeah, maybe. So it could be like, I don't like this.
She was screaming plenty afterwards.
Yeah, I don't like the scream because, like, if you lift up heavy weight, you could grunt. Like, is that a scream? But I see no controversy. I just want to make that. I'm just saying I could see the did she tap? Didn't she tap? I don't know. Before that, Lando Vanata took on Daniel Zellhuber. I thought Zellhuber looked great. I liked his pressure. I like him. I just like him overall. I think because of the size of him, his age. I like this guy.
Me too. He won, and he won in a way that will help him as a fighter. Because if he went out there and just dusted Vanata in 3 minutes, that's fine, and that's a nice step up in the division. But he ended up having to fight all 3 rounds against a guy in Vanata who, yeah, he's wild and doesn't always have the best fight IQ, but here he displayed pretty good fight IQ. He made adjustments between rounds 1 and 2, which forced Zellhuber to go back and make adjustments again in round 3. I liked that a lot. This is the kind of win that whatever Zellhuber's ceiling is, this can only help it. I liked it.
Yeah, another thing that stood out to me is Vanata's durability. I think it's fading. I mean, he was getting hurt, especially in the first round. I think as Zellhuber, he's 23. If he's 25, 26, like 2-3 years from now, same fight, same situation, he probably puts him out. Like, he'd hit a little harder.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if there's much to take from that. I like Zellhuber move forward. One of the fights that I was actually looking forward to most on the prelims, 2 fighters I think we both were pretty complimentary of, Denise Gomez versus Bruna Brazil, or just Bruna now, as Denise Gomes knocked her out. I don't think Brazil expected the pure aggression of Gomes. Like,
why would this longtime teammate of Jessica Andrade be aggressive?
I know. But she had that look when Gomes came out like a bull. Like, this stuff was I'm supposed to give me distance so I can work my pot shots, and that was not the case. Gomes got in a grill, and the one thing I kept saying to myself was like, dude, lift your left hand up. She kept keeping by her hip and just throwing the overhand right over it. And by the time she tried to bring it up, it was coming around, wrapping around her left hand and bashing her with her chin high in the air. Not good, but Gomes, I mean, I think she looked fantastic.
She did. She looked fantastic. And I have to take back some of the things I said about her on the preview, because I said there is that Parna Vale Tudo model of fighter that they kind of stamp out like a factory, but she doesn't seem to have quite the same explosion or pure power as the Jessica Andrade or Carl Hosa type. But she took strides forward in that in this fight, and she's still super young. She's pretty green in terms of actual fight experience. I already thought she was pretty good, and she might have more upside than I thought. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think she looked good. I look forward to both. Yeah, her move forward. Brazil needs to change some things, but so she gets brings those hands up more. She's one who's relying on head movement, but isn't quick enough to get like she needs to fix that. Before that, Gaston Bolonis took on Aaron Phillips. Talk to me about this fight.
Oh, it was a fight where I didn't come out feeling better about either fighter in particular. I said what I said about Aaron Phillips, where I just, he was a borderline UFC talent at best. I mean, this made him 0-4 in the UFC across multiple stints with the promotion. And I thought he might have been already transitioning towards just running a gym full time. He's still a good ground fighter. He's still just slick on the ground. He's fast on the ground in a way he isn't necessarily on the feet, but it's Bolaños' fault that he had chances to flex that against him. Bolaños just, he still fights like a guy that's fighting regional fights in a chicken coop in Peru. Throwing 3 spinning elbows in a
I
row
know.
is not going to work on a
No,
UFC level fighter, even by a definition of UFC level fighter that includes Aaron Phillips, who was
yeah,
0-3 in the promotion and probably actually is at UFC level.
I don't know if that
This
would
work.
work
This
on
worked.
Wilson Phillips.
Oh,
Like three
no,
spinning
all
back
3 of them.
elbows.
All 3 of them. The,
Maybe
the
that's
spawn of Brian
maybe that's who he
Wilson.
thought he was. Maybe that's who he thought he was going against. That's why he threw
Yeah.
3 of them.
No, I mean, Gaston Bolaños went, I think, like 7-3 or something in Bellator, fighting partly on prelims with this approach. And he fought basically the same way against Phillips in kind of a gimme UFC debut. Yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah, I felt this was like striker versus grappler. Obviously, I wouldn't call Belen. I'm sorry on his last name. I'm sorry.
Bolaños, you're fine.
Bolaños. I wouldn't say he's totally a striker. So I just want to make that clear. But like that was his event. He wanted to keep it on the feet while Phillips had it on the ground. The difference is when Phillips had it on the ground, he didn't control him enough.
Yep.
And when Bolaños had the positions where he had the advantage, he was coming with his shots. He was turning up the pressure, landing the shots. Even the moments where like Phillips would fall off his back and Bolaños end up on top, he's dropping the hard hammer. I mean, at one point I think it was the second round where at one point Phillips is on his back and Bolaños is standing over him. He's kicking him in the legs, trying to drop down hammer fists at the end of the round. That was a big thing. But that said, I feel like Bolaños' fight IQ made this fight closer than it needed to be with the spinning back fist and all that. If he had a better fight IQ, he might have been able to get Phillips on. I don't know if he would have, but there's something better. He can because he can crack. I mean, Bolaños has power. I'm okay with a spinning attack here and there, but not all the time. Like not as much. Like he almost got submitted because of it.
Yes, he was in some trouble in the first round. He was in a lot of trouble in the second, and both times it was situations of his own making. This should at least have been a pretty easy, straightforward 3-round win for him.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of should have been 3-round win or something, Lucy Pudilova took on Jocelyn Edwards, with Jocelyn Edwards winning a split decision. Ben, how did you score this fight? And throw out the chat too. Throw out the chat. How did you score this fight?
I scored this fight. I scored it for Pudilova, and I want to say I scored it 29-28, but let me check my own scorecard here.
I'm assuming you gave her the first 2 rounds and gave Edwards the
third. I actually scored it 29-27 for Pudilova. I gave her a 10-8 round 2.
Because she was in the mount, dropping those elbows.
She had her down within 10 seconds. So Edwards landed literally no offense, and Pudilova dominated positionally and did damage.
Yeah, this is one of those fights to me. People call them robbery. I'm not going to say robbery for the. I thought Edwards won the 3rd round. I thought the 1st round was close. It could have went the way because Pudilova had a lot of control time, but not a lot of damage. And on the feet, I thought Edwards landed some better shots on the feet, especially at the end of the round. But I still scored it for Pudilova. I don't think it was enough to steal the round away.
Yeah.
But I could see the argument for it. Sure. But on the flip side, I could see the argument for a 10-8 round in the 2nd round. To me, this is a robbery if this is one championship scoring.
Okay. Makes
because
sense.
I feel like Pudilova, definitely won majority of the fight.
Luckily, that all takes care of itself because if it were in one championship, they'd just overturn it.
Yeah. Well, in one championship, Edwards would have weighed in at like 165 pounds for this fight. I did want to put out that MMA decisions have it 15-0 for the scorecard submitted, all for Pudilova.
Yeah.
So, I can understand why people are upset.
Well,
Not the worst decision ever, but not again.
This is what happens when the UFC goes to a jurisdiction once in a decade, because the main problem on these first couple, on the whole undercard, two of the three judges in the Edwards Pudilova fight had never judged a UFC fight before.
Yeah.
And they were all over the undercard. The refs that were, at least I am going to squawk about a little bit later in this show, had never done a UFC card, and it shows.
Yeah, I think I have I know what you're gonna squawk about because I'm in agreement with you. Yeah, I agree with you saying, like, the UFC needs to go to places more often so you have experience. But then on the flip side, if they go to Kansas City now and they go to Kansas City 3 years from now and 3 years of that means they're not going to all the other places they want to go to.
Yeah,
and I get it. It's tough. They only have so many shows. It's not like it's only America. They want to go internationally. They want to go to Brazil. They want to go to England. They want to go to other European countries they haven't been to. Then you want to go to the Canadians, always complaining about, the Canadians don't ever stop complaining about not getting enough shows, and then so. Yeah, we got people bringing up. And then the other thing is, you have any fighter from any country or any region you haven't been to, that everyone always asks, I love when I love when media members, this is a blanket, it's not towards anybody, and I've asked these questions too, so like I get it. You probably asked it, but then when they, you get someone from Paris, and they're like, would you love to have the UFC come to Paris and fight in the garden? What do you say? No, no. Paris is a dump. I live there. Like, no, I'll never come. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Why the hell would they go there? That'd be great if someone just said that one time, just dog their own hometown. Like,
I'd love it.
Yeah, Detroit. What the hell? Why would everyone want to come to Detroit? So there you guys have it. We covered all 14 fights. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's get to do we have the awards, Ben?
We do have the awards. Little out of the ordinary, as we have a fight of the night, and then we have 3 performance of the night bonuses.
Okay, so we'll throw an extra one out there for everybody. So a fight of the night,
yeah,
and 3 performance bonuses.
So I imagine most of you probably already know what the actual awards were given. I mean, they were announced at the press conference. If you have Twitter open, you've probably seen them announced. So instead of guessing what they are, just say what you would give the awards to. If you had to give 1 fight of the night and 3 performance of the night, I will. I'll call out some of them here.
Ben, go first. Let me hear what yours would. What would you do?
Okay. I'm fine. They picked fight of the night was Aljo versus Brown. I like that. That works for me.
You give it okay, Aljo versus Brown.
But I mean, I'm fine with it. But it's not going to have the same rewatchability for me that Holloway versus Allen does. Holloway versus Allen was just it was as exciting, and it was better, but it was much higher level. And yeah,
usually they like giving it to the main event.
Yeah,
I'm surprised by that. I would have gave it to. It's not often that we pick the main event over a good prelim, but yeah, I would have went with Holloway and Allen. What would you do for the performance bonuses?
I mean, Edson Barboza's got to get one. If Edson Barboza does something where you're like, oh man, is that one of his best finishes? That's got to get a bonus. Brandon Royval was, to me, I put it on my knockout of the year list. I don't know where it'll end up by the time this year is out, but right now I'm like, that's one of the best knockouts I've seen this year.
Yeah, and it was a good one.
Yeah. Part of me would want to pick Zach Cummings just to give him like a little $50K check to take into the next phase of his career. Maybe pay James Krause's bail or something.
Is there a good casino in Kansas City?
I don't know. Is there any like native like res land near there? I don't know. I mean, they could at least go over to like the WinStar in Thackerville, catch a Bellator card, and like lay some money on the tables.
There you
go. But no, I like Jillian Robertson. Controversy aside, it was
Really?
a beautiful armbar. Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with you. I would have went with Holloway and Allen as the fight of the night. Performances, definitely Barboza. Totally agreement there. Definitely Royval. So kind of leaves that last one. I thought about Kudalaba, but I'm gonna go with
Don't reward
Gomes.
him. Don't encourage him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Gomes there.
Then it's a nice one.
Knocking out. You don't get knockouts in women MMA often.
Yeah.
So I would go with Gomez or Gomes, or however you say it. That's what I would do. The performance bonuses were what?
The performance bonuses were fight of the night was Algil versus Brown. Performances were Barboza, Robertson, and Royval.
Oh, so you agree with everything but the fight of the night?
Yeah, but honestly, I would be fine with Gomes as well.
Okay. That's tough. There was a lot of good performances. I mean, Kudalaba, you mentioned Zach Cummings as another one. I mean, he didn't get a stoppage, but Garcia, like how he pieced up Clay Guida. I mean, that was a great performance. All right, let's get to. You want to be positive and negative, Ben?
Do we have a cut list?
You want to do the cut? I have. Let's see. I have at least 3 on my cut list.
I have.
We'll throw it out to the chat too. I have 3.
1, 2. Not counting people who retired.
Not counting people retired. Yeah.
I have 1, 2, 3.
All right. So the way cut list works, if both me and Ben have a fighter on our cut list, we give the UFC permission to cut them. Of course, the UFC listens to every single thing me and Ben do. Do you think the UFC knows who we are?
Yes, because they've asked permission to use clips of us and like sizzle reels for things a few times.
There you go. I'm sure Dana likes to watch the show every single time to decide what he wants to do. But cut list, we have 3, so let's hear it.
Okay. Cut number 1, Aaron Phillips. He's 0-4 in the UFC. Bang, and he lost a fight despite his opponent doing his best to make it as close as he could.
He almost hasn't won a fight in almost 4 years. Yep, gone.
I hate to do this, but Lando Venata is now 4-7-2 in the UFC. But more importantly, he's 2-6-2 at lightweight. Like, he's not even competitive at lightweight at this point.
Yep, gone.
I would let Lucy Pudilova go.
Oh, wow. I thought about it. I saved Lucy Pudilova just because I thought she won.
I thought she won too, but I wanted the excuse to let her go. That's fine. I like it. She can be saved.
Can we let Jocelyn Evans go on a win?
Hey, if the UFC can let, Shane Burgos and Corey Anderson go off of wins, they can let Jocelyn Edwards go off a win.
You know what they should do with Jocelyn Edwards? Do what they did to Ed Herman. Like, Ed Herman was under UFC contract but went to Strikeforce. Like, send her to Strikeforce. Like, she's looking around like, what's going on? she's in an arena in San Jose.
I'm in the Shark Tank in San Jose, and they got a hockey game going on down here. I'm from Panama. I don't know what the hell to do.
I was cutting Tanner Boza. He's lost 4 out of 5. He lost 4 out of 5, 2 different weight classes. I was letting his mullet go.
And it was even less of a mullet. He kind of trimmed it up in the back. I don't know if that was part of the weight cut, but he looked like,
a lot of Clay Guida's long hair is gone. The mullet's gone. It's
yeah.
The UFC barber is being busy. All right, let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. Things are good. Bulls, things are bad. Bears, you want to be on the Bulls list. You don't want to be on the Bears list. We do it 3, 2, 1. Ben, you want to go positive? You want to go negative?
I say we stay negative.
Stay negative. I'll let you kick it off then. Let's go with the Bears. So,
okay, Bears. This would have been higher on the list before the co-main event, but I'm still going to stick it on the list. The old guys. Edson Barboza pulled the old guys bacon out of the fire as the one grizzled veteran who looked absolutely sensational in putting away a decent fighter. Other than that, Clay Guida, it's not just that he lost. It's how he lost. It just, it looked bad by the eyeball test. Ed Herman, again, it's not just that he lost, because he would have lost to any UFC light heavyweight that night, but he lost to Zach Cummings, former welterweight, fighting for the first time in almost 3 years, and was not even remotely competitive. It was bad. So yeah, number 3 is the old guys. Number 2. I'm just gonna throw this one out there. I'm just gonna throw 2 out there. The local officials, and
Yeah.
it's I don't even know exactly who I'm mad at. Like, part of it I'm mad at the UFC, because the UFC will sometimes take mediocre officials to places they really don't need to. Like, they don't need to bring Chris Lee and Sal D'Amato to Brazil at this point. Brazil has people that know how to judge MMA fights.
Yeah.
But then they go to Missouri, a place that they should know is problematic. Missouri has been famous for bad reffing and bad judging almost as long as I've been following this sport. And we end up with UFC fights being affected by things that they shouldn't be. And here, I mean, obviously we have the weird decision in the Edwards Pudilova fight, but even looking at Cummings versus Herman, and oh goodness, the ref in the Cummings versus Herman fight, that's going to be Bess, Dwayne Bess. There are 2 different up kick fouls where
I knew it.
Herman's down,
Yeah.
he up kicks Cummings while Cummings is on his knees, but like basically like in his guard.
Yeah.
He stops the fight. He even does a point deduction the second time. I support that. But both times he restarts him standing.
Yeah.
Ever since Dwayne Ludwig versus Genki Sudo, all the way back in 2004 or 5 or whenever it was, the guideline has been, if the fight is on the ground when it is stopped for anything, a foul, a medical check, whatever it is, unless it was the fault of the fighter on top, you restart them in the same position. Like if the fighter on top commits a foul, they lose the position. The fighter on bottom commits the foul, they don't. Otherwise, guess what? You just weaponize the illegal up kick.
Yeah. You just
like, how does someone not know that in 2023?
Yeah. So let me tell you a quick story. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to flag football for my 8-year-old son. He's joined flag football, and they are looking for volunteers. So I'm a coach. I'm coaching my son's 6 to 8-year-old flag football team. We're the Packers. The closest the Packers will come to a championship in a long time. Believe it or not, I have a kid. I don't know if I should say this on the air, but I was gonna say I have a kid. The kid's last name on the team is named Lombardi. I swear. Like, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. If some other kid shows up, his last name is Favre. I'm calling him Zach Cummings. So he's taking any bets on the. But anyways, it's volunteer. We're going for the first time, and they send you like the rules all out there. Like I know more about how the flag football game that I've never been to works better than MMA that I've been watching for more than half my life. Like, what are we doing? Anyways.
And I think it was Best. If not, it was another one of the local refs who told a fighter to start working who was in mount. If you're in mount, like, if the ref tells you need to do something more than you're doing, you should be allowed to pull brass knuckles out of your trunks.
That's it. When they go to different cities, they should have like a weapon of choice.
Yeah.
Like what's a common weapon in this city? But like it can't be like serious, like not knives and guns, but like you go to France and you get like a French bread you can hit someone with or something. All right. I'll go with my Bears. You did all of them, right? I know.
I threw out the 2 because it was multiple examples.
Yeah, I'll go with Tanner Bozer. I mean, the weight cut wasn't the issue. He cut weight and he still lost, so that's not a good night for him. Dustin Jacoby lost 2 fights in a row, and he's up there in age. And the number one Bear, the featherweight matchmakers, get good luck figuring out what you got to do moving forward with Max Holloway. So not a good night. Let's go to the Bulls. These are the ones who had a great night, who stacked one up. I'll go first this time. I want to go with Denise Gomez, Gomes, or how you say her name. I mean, you got a knockout in that division. Always fantastic.
Yes.
My number 2. Asma Mirzakhanov, undefeated, 3-0 in the UFC, got a big win over Dustin Jacoby. I mean, yeah, he's up there in age, but he's making noise while he's in the UFC. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but so far so good. And number 1, Brandon Royval. I mean, we're talking about he's gonna go from prelims to title fight, but I mean, how's there more stock than that? Going probably prelims to co-main event of a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon, and he could be winning a title. Like, he could win those fights. So,
and it would have taken a lot to really set yourself apart from the pack as Brandon Royval tonight, and he did it. There you go. Like,
that's right. Ben, you have any bulls?
Oh, I got tons of bulls, but all I'll throw out is Pedro Munoz. I'd written him off. You'd written him off, not you personally, but just you in general. If you're watching this, there's a chance you wrote Pedro Munoz off. There's a chance that you were like, okay, his recent run looks extra bad just because he's been fighting the best of the best of the best, but he's kind of done. And tonight, not only did he win, but he won in a way that made it look like he might not be done. So definitely adding him. And Edson Barboza. Edson Barboza gets a rare award because he made me delete a tweet tonight. Because I typed up a tweet, sent it out, said, I have the feeling that Edson Barboza's fights from here on out are going to be depressing. And luckily, like 20 seconds later, I was like, I'll pull that one. Like, it's not even that it didn't age well. It didn't even get born well. Like, it was out. They were cutting the cord, and I'm like, no. Like, yeah, that one's gone.
You are a Democrat.
He is. Hey, deleting tweets.
That was a better joke than I got a response.
That was a fantastic joke. Like, I'm just not sure. Like, oh, Skynet. We covered Bo Nickel. Yeah, like we talked about Bo Nickel.
I sprinkled Bo Nickel in.
He put out like a humble prayer that Bo does not fall in love with his hands, does not fall for the idolatry of his hands. You know, because Keith is a church going, God fearing man, so he's gonna light a little candle. Well, no, you're not Catholic. You're not gonna.
Yeah, maybe not after that joke I just made. I might not be anymore. I went to the dark side.
Yeah. But yeah, like Pedro Munoz and Edson Barboza. Like I still don't think he's a future top 15 guy because he was barely a past top 15 guy and he's 37 now. But if he can keep doing that, just even every other time, rack up a few more bonuses. He's been at ATT so long, he's probably just going to become like the head striking coach for one of their 3 big heads, like, Conan, Brownie, or Pahumpa. He'll just slot in right alongside them. And
one of the Brazilian guys. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you have any dude seriouslys? I got 2.
This whole fucking card is a dude seriously.
All right, kick it off, man.
Okay, I mean, I'll throw out, and we already talked about it a little bit, but Dustin Jacoby, you are a former top 5 kickboxer in the world, like legit. You fought for a glory title against the guy that might have been the best in the world at the time, Alex Pereira. You are an elite of the elite strikers, and it has carried over to MMA. And when you got 3 minutes left and you need to finish a smaller man who's tired and you hurt on the feet, now you decide to wrestle? Dude, seriously?
Yeah.
He wanted one time to hear Keith talk about him the way he talks about Bo Nickel. He's like, maybe if I wrestle, Keith will love me.
That's it. You see that level change?
Yeah.
Any more?
Marcus Mustard stole mine, so I'm just going to put his comment up there and read it because I was saving this. Cummings and Herman both picked their gloves back up. Dude, they're supposed to leave them in there and not carry them out with you. Nope. They left. Yeah. They put their gloves in for like the little photo op, but then they took them so that like their kids could have them. I mean, I understand.
Like you don't have enough. You don't have enough gloves at Herman.
And number 1, dude, seriously, one of the bigger dude seriouslys of the year in a low key way is Guida hastily having his gloves cut off so that they approach him with the mic. Presumably the production truck's in the ears. Okay, looks like Guida might retire. DC, get out there, talk to him. For one, it wasn't funny. That was kind of cringy. But on top of it, it was already a card that was running low and slow and running behind. He wouldn't have gotten an interview otherwise. So he like wasted like 2 or 3 minutes of my actual day. Dude, seriously, come on. You're going to get 5 more fights in the UFC. Goof around some other time.
Yeah, he's like, I got 3 people to thank. He names 2, and DC's like, no, they didn't get that third person in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go at DC with a dude. Seriously, it was actually shouldn't be DC. It should be Daniel Zellhuber, who had a fantastic performance, but he talked about his first loss in the UFC, and he said, hey, only Habib leaves the UFC undefeated. Dude, seriously, get in the Sherdog forums. You'll learn about Philip Miller.
Come on, man.
He probably wasn't even born when we used to talk about that in the chat, but everyone, Bass knows who. Not Bass has spent a lot of times talking about Philip Miller, and my other one is Bill Algeo. That if you want to act like Colby Covington, you got to have at least half his talent in the cage. Like, dude, seriously, like don't follow Colby's gimmick. It's ridiculous. All right, what is your grade for the card?
My grade for the card is a B-.
Okay.
And that's the best this card, maybe the best it could possibly have done given the talent on the card. But we got a couple of sensational finishes, and we got Max Holloway doing Max Holloway things. So B- is the best I can do for this one.
Yeah, Mark and Russ is talking about the arena being packed out. Like, dude, seriously, what else they had to do in Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you go to a state that has.
I'm sure it's a beautiful city.
It's actually a nice town. But I mean, they had not had a UFC in. It was over a decade.
And in fairness, though, Kansas City has like the worst football fans. Their football fans are terrible. Well, I mean, I get it. All 32 teams have terrible football fans.
Yeah.
But, I give it a B. The main event just carried me over to a B. Like, it was so good. Just watching those two guys work. Toughest question tonight always is, who is your listener of the evening?
It was it's a rough look because we had, a lot of our regulars, Boz, Dev out there, Ben Cooley is out there, Technical Wealth is out there. But, we had like Skynet coming in on fire, like calling us a bunch of casuals for not like properly elucidating Max Holloway's early career. And we had, oh my goodness, 30C West, like making me laugh out loud a couple times. But those are all my honorable mentions. My winner tonight is going to be, they scroll to his name, Kyle Johnson, for just lacing the old school cultural references that you have no business like knowing about. Like, like
Downtown Julie Brown was great.
Yeah, Downtown Julie Brown. Like, I mean, that made me feel old. And oh my goodness, yes. But so good job,
I'm
Kyle.
glad you picked Kyle because I had two people on my list, so I didn't know who to pick. So I'm glad you picked Kyle because that was my other one. I'm gonna go to a guy that I don't think we've given the award to in a really long time. He's here every week. I'm gonna go with my boy Marcus Mustard. I think Marcus Mustard was very strong all night. I don't think we've given him an award in a while, so
I like
Marcus
that.
Mustard, he's our listener of the night. So Kyle Johnson and Marcus Mustard, nice job, guys. So there you guys have it. We have recapped all 14 fights. We will be previewing this week UFC Blades versus Pavlovich. Really great main event.
Yeah, that's.
So make sure you check that out. We'll be back recapping next week. Until then, thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show. Come back every week and talk with us. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. See you next time.